Well, it is the worst cover-up in the history of cover-ups. That's what President Trump is calling the death of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The Saudis have been very inconsistent with their explanations. First, they claim Khashoggi left the Saudi consulate in Istanbul October 2nd alive. They later said he died after a fist fight that broke out while he was there under questioning. And today, Turkey's President Erdogan accused the Saudis of planning to kill Khashoggi days before he entered that consulate and called for the suspects to be tried in Turkey. Our CIA Director Gina Haspel was sent to Turkey to investigate the case. And today, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told reporters the U.S. has identified some of the people they suspect are responsible. The ordeal has President Trump under pressure to end arms sales to the Saudis. Watch.
We do that, we're just hurting ourselves. We're just hurting ourselves. And I know that from a certain standpoint, you could also say, well, it doesn't matter because it is a terrible thing. But we would be really hurting ourselves. We'd be hurting our companies. We'd be hurting our jobs. And so we'll see what happens.
The situation has put the president in quite a pickle. So how does he get out of this one? Joining me to discuss, KFI AM 640 radio host and Iraq combat veteran, Bryan Suits is here. Welcome back, Suits.
Hey, go Dodgers.
That's right, except not until after the show. So let's talk about this murder. Was it planned, do you think, in advance of Khashoggi's arrival at the consulate in Turkey?
Yes, but not very deliberately. There's an old saying that a decent plan violently executed is better than a deliberate plan over time. And it looks like the Saudis saw an opportunity and decided to get kinetic with the guy. They were never going to grab him, no matter what they say. The plan was not to rendition him back to Saudi Arabia, though that would have been a better plan than what they did, because they committed a murder on the soil of one of their blood enemies. And the Turks, by the way, of course they knew it was going to happen. They had the Saudi consulate wired.
Of course.
But they let Khashoggi go in there. Mm-hmm. They knew what was going to happen to him. They knew exactly what was going to happen to him. But there's a bigger benefit to them in letting him be murdered. So let's not anyone be naive about this.
Well, let's talk about that dynamic between Saudi Arabia and Turkey. You know, these are two untrustworthy fake allies of the United States. The one thing you can say for Turkey, although they kill plenty of their own people, especially as this dictatorship grows more and more oppressive, but they've been consistent with their story about what happened to Khashoggi when he went into that consulate. Saudi Arabia keeps changing their story. So what is Turkey getting out of all of this?
They're getting a chasm between the United States and Saudi Arabia. The #1 foreign policy goal of President Recep Erdogan of Turkey is to diminish the Saudi role in the Muslim world. And in doing that, if he can drive a wedge between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, that's style points, because he becomes more indispensable to us. And this fell into his lap. I mean, this is probably one of the greatest intelligence coups for Turkish intelligence ever, because the Saudis were so careless about doing this.
When is he going to release some of the information that he claims to be privy to about the dismemberment and the brutal and awful way in which this journalist was murdered?
He nearly did it. When Mike Pompeo came back to D.C. and said, I didn't hear any tape, I wasn't played any tape or whatever, Erdogan nearly not only released some of the tape, but he was going to release proof that Pompeo did hear it. And that's why
do you believe
Gina
Pompeo?
Haspel,
I mean, okay, Mike Pompeo is not just the Secretary of State. He's a former CIA director.
Yeah.
So he knows how these things work. He's worked in three distinct and important parts of the federal government, being Secretary of State, our chief diplomat, being the head of the CIA, and also working as a representative. And I don't know what else he did before that. My membership of the Mike Pompeo fan club ran up last month.
West Pointer.
Yeah, West Pointer. Okay, that's fine. But you know he heard the tape, if there's a tape, right?
Yes, but the Turks weren't supposed to say that. They weren't playing by the rules, and that's why Gina Haspel was dispatched there. Now they're getting result. They're hearing Trump talking about that it's a bad thing, it's a horrible thing, the whole thing. The ball is in the Saudis' court, and it might be that the guy, the anointed next leader, Mohammed bin Salman Abdulaziz, the crown prince, he might be out, or he might go behind the scenes or something. But it is unpalatable to the average American that our closest Arab ally is doing female genital mutilation, is killing journalists. you know, and all that.
Is killing gays and suppressing women and...
Well, they don't have gays. But also, every American president has done it for 50 years.
The only good thing about Saudi Arabia.
And that's the biggest, lie going on here, that the Democrats are somehow without sin on this. Every American president has done it, especially since the Iranian Revolution.
Every American president has done it in the same way, for the same reasons, and the whole thing is so stupid and confusing. So let's look ahead a few decades at the Middle East when we are past oil. How are things working then? Because it seems that what MBS, the Crown Prince, has been doing is trying to lay the foundation for a new economy once the United States and the rest of the world is no longer dependent on oil. What does that look like? And does this
then
affect
he'll be pumping oil directly to China, because China is not going to convert to some green pro-polar bear economy. There will always be a need for oil to go into ships and go out of the Strait of Hormuz. So 20 years from now, there's either going to be a revolution in Iran and you'll get a more pliant regime, or there'll be a revolution in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. I don't know, man. As long as we're not funding it, I don't want to rebuild any of their nations. Speaking of hellholes in different parts of the world, Brian, you've seen that caravan that is heading northward with those delighted optimists who want to come to the U.S. and participate, perhaps, in our economic prosperity. The president isn't buying it. Republican voters are terrified of it. The president has talked about sending troops to the border. What does that say to you?
Well, I think his definition of troops, legally, he probably means National Guard from California to Texas.
Aren't they already there? They've been there since April.
It depends. Not
They've been
in California.
clearing brush and doing some light housekeeping.
Yeah, Jerry Brown took the money but sent the National Guard up to Mount Shasta.
Oh. For spring break.
When the president says that, the audience hears the 82nd Airborne, or the 1st Armored leaving Fort Bliss. You can't send federal troops to enforce immigration law because that's a civilian law enforcement job. Yeah. But Americans like seeing people in uniform, young, square-jawed people in uniform.
Don't stop talking.
And so he can do that with the National Guard and call it troops. But they don't have any actual law enforcement power. They look great as long as they're height, weight proportional, but they don't have any actual law enforcement power. I did that mission. Yep. And, it was good money. I was unemployed at the time.
Well, now you're not. And thank goodness for us, because we are the beneficiaries of your hard work. Bryan Suits, as always, thank you for your service.
Vigilant as always, Kennedy.
Very good. I still have your bowl from 4th of July. Come get it. Thanks again.